The holidays are supposed to be about home, about security, about the people we trust most. But for me, it was the season I realized that the man sitting across from me at the Christmas table was actually a stranger. My name is Lorraine Kaplan. And this is how I took my life back. I found the Christmas trust papers tucked behind the nativity set. Signed. Notarized. Dated 2 weeks earlier. My name was still on the stockings. But it wasn't on the house anymore. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories where betrayal meets quiet, satisfying justice, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know, and it lets me keep bringing you these stories. My name is Lorraine Kaplan, and for 32 years I was the woman who made Christmas happen. Not the Pinterest kind, not the magazine kind. The real kind. The kind with flour on the counters, a handwritten list taped to the fridge, and a tired smile at midnight because someone still needed a last-minute stocking stuffer and the tree lights had decided to blink out again. Mark used to joke that I ran December like a small business. He'd say it at parties, laughing, arm around my shoulder, like it was a compliment. People would laugh with him. They didn't see what I saw. That when he said it, he didn't mean I was capable. He meant I was useful. Every year, our house in Maple Glen filled up like clockwork. Our daughter Brooke would arrive first, brisk and organized, carrying her color-coded gifts and a mom. I made a schedule attitude that had gotten sharper since she married Tessa. Our son Ethan came next, always a little later, always apologizing with a grin. Arms full of poinsettias like that made up for being 40 and still acting 25. And Mark would stand in the doorway, smiling that easy smile of his, accepting praise for the home he barely helped hold together. Lorraine does all the magic, he'd say, like he was the supportive husband in the Christmas movies. Then he'd wander off to watch football or answer calls in his office, while I wiped cranberry sauce off the tablecloth and pretended it didn't sting. I didn't expect perfection. I expected partnership. But over the last few years, partnership became a word Mark used like a decorative pillow, nice to look at, never meant to carry weight. This year was different from the start. It began with the guest room. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Mark came home with that careful tone, soft, rehearsed, the one he used when he'd already decided something and wanted me to believe I had a choice. "Lorraine," he said, setting his briefcase down like he was closing a deal. "I invited Serena to stay for Christmas week." I was stirring soup. The spoon paused mid-circle. "Serena who?" I asked. "Serena Rosen," he said quickly. "From the firm. You've met her at the summer picnic. Dark hair. Smart. Divorced." I hadn't met her. Not really. Mark's summer picnic was a blur of name tags and cheap wine, and people who talked at you like they were networking even while holding paper plates. "Why is she staying here?" I asked. Mark's smile didn't move. "Her apartment is being renovated. It's only for a few days. She's alone for the holidays." I thought, "You'd want to help." He said it like he was offering me a chance to earn a gold star. I turned the heat down under the pot. "Mark, Christmas week is already, I know," he cut in, still smiling. "But you're Lorraine. You can handle it." There it was. Useful. I should have said no. I know that now. But there's a kind of exhaustion that comes with being the steady one. Saying no feels like starting a fire in a house you've spent years keeping warm. "Fine," I said. "But I'm not changing anything. Not the schedule, not the traditions." "Of course not," Mark said too quickly, and kissed my cheek like that settled it. 2 days later, Brooke called. "Mom," she said, voice bright in that way that meant she'd already discussed it with someone else. "Tessa and I were thinking this year, let's do Christmas dinner earlier. Like 4, so we can do gifts before it gets too late. We've always eaten at 6, I said. "Well, people get tired," Brooke replied, as if I was the only person who didn't understand human biology. "And Serena might want to do something later with her friends." I blinked. "Serena?" There was a pause. Dad told you, right? She's coming. It's no big deal, Mom. No big deal. The way you say no big deal when it's absolutely a big deal, and you're hoping the other person won't fight. Brooke, I said carefully, why is your father's coworker dictating our Christmas? Oh my God, Mom, Brooke sighed. It's not like that. She's different. She's fun. She gets it. Gets it. As if I didn't. When I hung up, my stomach felt like it had swallowed ice. I tried to tell myself it was just one guest. One adjustment. Families flex. Holidays change. But then the little humiliations started quiet, deliberate, like someone moving furniture in the dark. Serena arrived on December 19th with a rolling suitcase and a smile too polished for a house full of gingerbread crumbs. She was in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, wearing a cream coat that probably cost more than my entire winter wardrobe. Her hair fell in glossy waves. Her nails were perfect. She looked like she'd stepped out of a holiday commercial where nobody's oven ever smokes. Lorraine, she said like we were old friends. Mark has told me so much. Mark stood behind her, hands in his pockets, pleased with himself. I forced a smile. Welcome. Serena walked in like she owned the place, eyes scanning the living room, the tree, the family photos. She paused at one on the mantel. Mark and me, 10 years ago, at Ethan's college graduation. How sweet, she said softly. Then she looked at me. You were very traditional. I didn't know what that meant, but I heard the judgment inside it. That first night I made my standard dinner: roast chicken, potatoes, green beans with almonds. Serena took one bite and said, "Oh, I don't really do carbs. But it smells amazing." Mark laughed. Lorraine's old school. Old school. Like I was an appliance. Ethan arrived the next afternoon, cheeks pink from the cold, arms full of gifts. "Mom," he said, hugging me tight. "House smells like Christmas." Then he saw Serena. "Oh," he said, surprised. "Hi." Serena smiled brightly. "Ethan, I've heard so much. You look just like your father." Mark's grin widened. "That's what I say." Ethan glanced at me, confused. I gave him a small shrug. "Not now." That evening, while I rolled cookie dough, Serena appeared beside me at the counter. "You measure everything," she observed. "That's how you bake," I said. She laughed lightly. Sure. I cook by feel. It's more intuitive." She reached for my brown sugar. "Also, you might want to use less of this. People are trying to be healthier these days." The words were casual. The implication wasn't. Brooke and Tessa arrived on the 22nd, as planned. Brooke came in like a manager walking into a workplace that had gone off script. "Mom, the table looks cute," she said, looking around. "But I think the centerpiece should be lower. It blocks sightlines." Tessa nodded, already pulling out her phone. "I can order something. I made that centerpiece," I said. Brooke blinked. "I know, Mom. It's just..." Serena stood behind them, smiling faintly. I felt the room tilt. Modern. Healthy. Intuitive. Lower. Better. Not you. That night, after everyone went to bed, I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the sink full of dishes. Mark came in quietly, loosening his tie. "You okay?" he asked, like he couldn't possibly imagine why I wouldn't be. "I feel like a guest in my own house," I said. Mark sighed. "Lorraine, don't make it dramatic. Serena is just here for the week. Brooke and Tessa want to help. It's Christmas." "It's my Christmas too," I said. Mark's eyes sharpened. "And you're making it unpleasant." He left before I could answer, like my feelings were a task he'd decided not to do. The next morning, I found the first crack in the picture. I was in the hall closet looking for the extra wrapping paper when a folder slipped off the top shelf and landed at my feet. It was thick, heavy, labeled in Mark's tidy handwriting, estate. My heartbeat changed, like my body recognized danger before my mind did. I shouldn't have opened it. But if there's one thing decades of marriage teach you, it's that secrets don't sit in closets unless they're meant to stay hidden. Inside were documents, trust revisions, deed transfers, account summaries. And there it was, in black ink that didn't care about my shock. My house listed under a new ownership structure. Kaplan Family Trust. Trustees, Mark Kaplan and Brooke Kaplan. Beneficiaries, Brooke Kaplan and Ethan Kaplan. My name was nowhere. Not as trustee. Not as beneficiary. Not even as a signature line. My hands went numb. I flipped pages faster, desperate for context that would make it make sense. Then I saw the date. December 5th. 2 weeks ago. I stood in the closet with Christmas wrapping paper at my feet, and for a moment I couldn't even breathe properly. They hadn't just changed dinner time. They'd changed my entire life. And the worst part was how calm the paperwork looked, as if removing me was the most reasonable thing in the world. I didn't scream. I didn't run downstairs waving papers. That's what they expected from me, emotional, messy, easy to dismiss. Instead, I put the folder back exactly where it had been, down to the angle. Then I went to the kitchen and made coffee like nothing had happened. Serena sat at the table scrolling on her phone, hair still perfect, sipping tea she hadn't offered to make. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I replied. Mark walked in a few minutes later, cheerful, humming a carol. "Big day," he said. "We should do the family photo this afternoon. Serena found a photographer who can swing by." I looked at him. "A photographer?" Brooke chimed in from the doorway. "Yeah, Mom, it'll be cute. We'll post it. Family brand. Family brand." Like we were a product. I smiled slowly. "Sure," I said. "That sounds lovely." Mark relaxed as if he'd passed a test. And that's when I decided I would play my role. Perfectly. Until the curtain fell. That afternoon, while they rearranged furniture for the photo, I slipped into my bedroom and called my friend Marlene Weiss. Marlene and I met at church 20 years ago. She was the kind of woman who wore bright lipstick and told the truth even when it made people uncomfortable. Her husband died 5 years back, and she'd rebuilt her life with a calm fierceness I admired. "Marlene," I said when she answered, keeping my voice even. "I need a name. A lawyer. The best one you know." There was a pause. "Lorraine, what happened? I'll tell you later," I said. "Just give me the name." She didn't push. That's why I trusted her. That night, after the family photo, after Serena positioned herself beside Mark like it was natural, after Brooke told me to tilt my chin up because it's more flattering, after Mark praised Serena's eye for aesthetics, he lay in bed beside my husband and listened to him breathe. He slept like a man with nothing to lose. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, and thought of every Christmas I'd made, every sacrifice, every "it's fine," every "don't worry about it," every time I swallowed my own needs to keep the family comfortable. I thought of my mother who stayed too long in a marriage that emptied her out. And I promised myself I would not become a cautionary tale. The next morning was Christmas Eve. Our house was full, smells of cinnamon, pine, and roasted nuts. The radio played the same old songs. The tree lights blinked softly, like they didn't know the truth. I moved through the day like a ghost in my own life, smiling, cooking, wrapping, laughing at the right moments. Serena glided around in a red sweater dress, taking pictures of the cozy vibe. Brooke kept fixing things, moving candles, adjusting pillows, correcting my timing. Mark acted like the king of the season, charming everyone, telling stories. And then, right before we left for Christmas Eve service, Mark said it. "Lorraine," he said, casual as if asking me to pass the salt, "I need you to sign something when we get back." My heart didn't change. It was already on high alert. "What is it?" I asked lightly. "Just a form," he said. "It's about the trust. Routine. Paperwork. Serena's eyes flicked to his. A small smile. Brooke looked away. Ethan thankfully wasn't in the room. A form. Routine. Paperwork. That's how you sell betrayal when you've practiced. At church, I sat in the pew beside Mark, the same pew we'd sat in for years. The candles glowed. The choir sang Silent Night. People shook my hand and told me how beautiful everything looked, how lucky Mark was, how blessed our family was. I smiled until my cheeks ached. When the pastor spoke about peace on earth, I wondered if he knew how much violence could exist without a single raised voice. After service in the church foyer, Serena approached our pastor, Reverend Cole, like she belonged there. "Reverend," she said warmly, "I just love what you've done with this place, so welcoming." He beamed. "Are you visiting family?" Serena slid her hand lightly onto Mark's arm. "Something like that." Mark didn't move away. I watched it happen like I was outside my body. It was small. A hand. A word. But it was a stake in the ground. Back home, they poured wine. Laughed. Played music. Serena suggested a fun game where everyone shared their favorite memory of Mark. Of Mark. Not of the family. Not of Christmas. Of Mark. Brooke went first. "Dad always made Christmas fun," she said, smiling at him like he was a hero. Ethan joined in, unaware. "Dad taught me how to string lights without tangling them." Serena leaned forward, eyes bright. "Mark has this way of making you feel safe," she said softly. "Like you're taken care of." Mark's face softened. I held my wine glass steady. When it was my turn, I smiled. "My favorite memory of Mark," I said, "is how dependable he's been." Mark relaxed, pleased. I added gently, "at least in public." The laughter stumbled. Just for a second. Then Brooke laughed too loudly. "Mom!" she said, rolling her eyes. "Don't start." Mark's jaw tightened. "Lorraine," he warned. I lifted my hands. "I'm kidding," I said smoothly. "It's Christmas Eve." And I watched Serena smile like she'd won something. Later, when everyone went to bed, Mark followed me into the kitchen. "Don't embarrass me," he said quietly. I turned, meeting his eyes. "Embarrass you?" He leaned closer. "You've been off, and I'm not doing this tonight." "Doing what?" "Loving me? Respecting me?" I nodded slowly. "Of course," I said. "I wouldn't want to ruin your Christmas." Mark stared at me, suspicious, then left. I washed the last glass, dried my hands, and went to my room. Then I opened my phone and booked an appointment for December 26th with the attorney Marlene had recommended, Daniel Levy. The next day, Christmas Day, arrived like a performance. We ate at 4, as Brooke demanded. Serena sat at the head of the table beside Mark as if it were natural. I served plates while they talked about travel plans. And then, right after dessert, Mark stood up. "I want to make a little announcement," he said, tapping his glass. Brooke's eyes shone. Serena's smile widened. I placed my napkin in my lap, slow and careful. Mark cleared his throat. "This year has made me realize we need to think about the future. About legacy." He looked at Brooke. "Brooke and Tessa have been amazing. Organized. Responsible." He looked at Ethan. "And Ethan, you're finding your way." He looked at me last, briefly, like an afterthought. "So," he continued, "I've updated our trust. Just to make things simpler, Brooke and I will be trustees. It'll protect the house." Protect the house. From me. The room hummed with approval. Brooke reached for his hand. "Dad, that's smart." Serena nodded, eyes bright. "So wise." Ethan frowned slightly. "Wait, what does that mean?" Mark smiled like a teacher explaining something simple. "It means the house stays in the family." Ethan glanced at me. "Mom?" I smiled. "It means," I said softly, "that I'm no longer part of the family. Silence fell like snow. Mark's face hardened. Lorraine, don't do this. Brooke's voice sharpened. Mom, stop. Serena stayed very still, like a predator watching a wounded animal. I stood, slowly. I need some air, I said calmly. Excuse me. And I walked out of my own dining room while my husband and children watched me go. Upstairs in the bedroom, I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands shook now that I was alone. I opened my phone and texted Marlene, "It's worse than we thought. I'll call tomorrow." Then I did what I'd never done in 32 years. I let Mark handle the mess. Downstairs, I heard muffled voices. Brooke's sharp tone. Mark's low, angry one. Ethan's confused questions. Serena's soothing, false calm. I stayed upstairs until the house grew quiet. When Mark finally knocked on the door, his voice was controlled but edged. "Lorraine, open the door." I opened it. He stood there, face flushed with contained anger. "You humiliated me," he said. I looked at him. "You erased me," I replied. He scoffed. "It's just paperwork. You're being dramatic." "It's not paperwork," I said. "It's my home. My security. My life." Mark's eyes narrowed. "You don't own anything, Lorraine. We built this together. We built this," I repeated slowly. "And you signed it away without me." He shrugged. "It's better this way. Brooke is responsible." "You." I laughed once, a small sound that surprised even me. "So your solution is to strip me of control?" Mark's voice dropped. "Lorraine, listen. After the new year, things are changing. We're selling, downsizing. It's time." "Time for what?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just a fraction." Serena's face flashed in my mind. Her hand on his arm at church. Her smile at the table. And then Mark said the words that broke the last thread. "I need a fresh start," he said. There it was. Not downsizing. Not simplifying. Replacing. I looked at the man I'd spent my life with and felt something collapse quietly in my chest. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was clarity. He wasn't pushing me out by accident. He was making room for someone else. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. Mark blinked, thrown off. He expected tears. Bargaining. Rage. "Okay?" he repeated. "Yes," I said softly. A fresh start. He stared at me, suspicious, then turned and walked away, satisfied. That night, while everyone slept, I went back to the hall closet and took pictures of every page in that estate folder. Then I went into Mark's office. I didn't rummage. I didn't toss things around. I simply opened drawers the way a wife of 32 years can, knowing exactly where he hides what he thinks is hidden. In the bottom drawer, under a stack of old tax returns, I found another folder. This one was labeled Rosen. My throat tightened. Inside were bank transfers. A cashier's check copy. A wire confirmation. A payment of $50,000. To Serena Rosen. The memo line, condo deposit. My stomach turned. We weren't rich. Comfortable, yes. But $50,000 wasn't loose change. It was years of careful saving, of me choosing modest vacations, of me putting off kitchen renovations, of me telling myself we were being responsible. Mark had taken our money and given it to her. And here was the smaller twist, sharp as a paper cut. A signed note from Brooke. "Dad, this is the right thing. Mom will understand eventually." Brooke knew. My daughter knew. I sat in Mark's office chair holding that note and felt something inside me go very still. Not numb. Clear. If Brooke wanted to treat me like an obstacle, then she would learn what obstacles do when you stop stepping over them. On December 26th, while the house still smelled faintly of pine and sugar, I drove to Daniel Levy's office. He was in his early 50s, calm eyes, neat suit, the kind of man who listened like he was weighing every word. I placed my folder of printed photos on his desk. He flipped through them, expression tightening with each page. "Lorraine," he said carefully, "did you sign any of these revisions?" "No," I said. "Did you consent?" "No." "Do you have access to the accounts listed?" "I used to," I said. "Mark changed passwords months ago. He said it was for security." Daniel exhaled slowly. "All right, here's what we're going to do." He spoke in plain language, not legal fog. He explained spousal rights, marital property, fraudulent transfers, undue influence. He explained that a trust revision can't simply erase a spouse's rights if marital assets were used improperly. He also explained something else, something that felt like oxygen. "You're not powerless," he said. I blinked, swallowing hard. "It feels like I am." "That's the point," he replied gently. "He wanted you to feel that way." We filed an emergency request to prevent the sale or transfer of the house until things were resolved. We sent notice to the bank about suspicious transfers. We demanded financial disclosures. And then Daniel asked, "Do you want to stay in the home?" I thought of the kitchen, the tree, the sink full of dishes, the years. "I want what's mine," I said. "And I want them to stop treating me like I'm disposable." Daniel nodded. "Then we proceed." On the drive home, I stopped at a small cafe and sat alone with a cup of tea. For the first time in days, my hands didn't shake. That evening, when I walked into the house, Serena was in my kitchen wearing my apron. "Ow! I hope you don't mind. I'm making soup. Mark said you were tired." Mark appeared behind her, pleased. "See? She's helpful." I looked at Serena, then at Mark. "I don't mind," I said calmly. "You'll both be very busy soon." Mark frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, taking off my coat slowly, "that I've hired an attorney." The air changed. Serena's smile froze. Brooke, sitting at the table, went pale. Mark's face flushed. "Lorraine, don't be ridiculous." "I'm not," I said. "I'm being responsible. Like you said." Serena set the spoon down carefully. "Lorraine," she murmured, "this is unnecessary." I tilted my head. "Is it?" Mark stepped toward me. "You're overreacting. This is a family decision." "A family decision," I repeated. "Made without me." Brooke stood, eyes wide. "Mom, please." I held up a hand. "Not tonight." I went upstairs, closed my door, and slept like I hadn't slept in weeks. The next few days were a blur of calm actions. Daniel Levi's office sent letters. Banks froze transfers pending review. Mark received a notice to preserve records. Mark tried to talk to me at first with charm, then with anger, then with panic. "Lorraine," he said one morning, voice low. "What are you doing?" "Protecting myself," I replied, buttering toast. "You're making me look bad," he hissed. I looked at him. "You did that." Serena avoided me now, moving through the house like a shadow. Brooke tried a different tactic, soft voice, tears. "Mom," she said in the living room, "I didn't want to hurt you. Dad said you'd be irrational. He said this was the safest way." "The safest way for who?" I asked quietly. She flinched. "For everyone." I nodded. "Not for me." And Ethan finally cornered me in the kitchen. "Mom," he said, voice tight. "What's happening?" I took a breath. Ethan was my son. He didn't deserve to be blindsided, even if the others thought I did. "Your father changed the trust," I said gently. "He transferred things without telling me. He gave money away. He's planning to sell." Ethan's face drained. "What?" I held his gaze. "Because he thinks I'll accept whatever he decides." Ethan swallowed hard. "Did Brooke know?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Ethan's jaw clenched. That's not okay." He hugged me then, awkward and strong. And for the first time since Serena arrived, I felt less alone. Then came the major no-way moment. On January 2nd, a letter arrived addressed to Lorraine Kaplan. Mark brought it to me like it was nothing, tossing it on the counter. "Probably junk," he muttered. I opened it. It was from a real estate agency. "Thank you for choosing us to list your property at 14 Hawthorne Lane. Your listing goes live January 5th. My vision narrowed. Mark had listed the house. Without me. After legal notice. After I hired an attorney. After everything. I stared at that letter and understood something that made my stomach go cold. Mark wasn't trying to fix this. He was trying to outrun it. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I called Daniel. Within an hour, Daniel had filed additional motions and contacted the agency directly, notifying them of the dispute and potential liability. The listing disappeared before it ever went live. Mark came home that night furious, slamming the door. "What did you do?" he demanded. I was at the dining table, sorting through paperwork calmly. "I stopped you," I said. "You can't just," he began. "I can," I replied. "Because I'm your wife, and this is marital property. And you don't get to sell my life out from under me." Mark's face twisted. "You're making this ugly." I looked up slowly. "Mark," I said, "you made this ugly when you treated me like a problem to be managed." Serena appeared behind him, eyes wide. Mark turned to her. "Go upstairs." She hesitated. "Now," he snapped. Serena disappeared. Mark lowered his voice. "Lorraine, what do you want?" The question was almost funny. After decades of me wanting basic respect, he was finally asking because he was cornered. "I want honesty," I said. "And I want what's fair. And I want you to stop pretending I'm the one ruining this." Mark scoffed, but his eyes were scared now. 2 days later, Daniel called me with information that made my stomach flip again. "Lorraine," he said, "we pulled statements. That $50,000 wasn't the only transfer." My grip tightened on the phone. "How much? In total," he said carefully, "over the last 18 months, $164,000. I sat down hard. $164,000. While I bought generic brands and skipped spa days and told myself we were being responsible. Daniel continued. "There are also hotel charges, travel, gifts." I closed my eyes. There it was, the affair spelled out in receipts and numbers. Not romance. Not love. Transactions. And then Daniel said, "There's another issue. Mark may have used funds from your joint retirement account without proper consent. That's serious. Serious." I didn't cry. My tears felt too precious to spend on a man who'd priced my marriage in line items. Instead, I called Marlene. "Marlene," I said, voice steady, "I need you to do something for me, anything," she replied. "I want Reverend Cole to know," I said. "Not gossip. Not rumors. The truth, calmly. With proof. But I'm not going to be the one who looks hysterical." Marlene inhaled. "Oh, Lorraine. Mark is on the church board," I said. "He loves being respected there. He loves being the pillar." Marlene's voice turned sharp. "Say no more." The following Sunday, Mark insisted we attend church together, like normal. Like he could paste over the cracks with tradition. I went, dressed neatly in navy, hair pinned back, lipstick soft. Calm. Serena did not come. Mark greeted people with that familiar smile, shaking hands, acting like he wasn't in the middle of destroying his wife. After service, Mark approached the foyer like he owned it. Then he saw Marlene standing beside Reverend Cole. They were talking quietly. Reverend Cole's face was serious. Mark's smile faltered. Marlene looked up and met my eyes across the room. She gave me a tiny nod. Mark walked toward them, posture stiff. I didn't follow. I simply watched. Reverend Cole handed Mark something in an envelope. Mark opened it. His face changed, first confusion, then anger, then a pale kind of fear. He looked around as if checking who might be watching. People were watching. Not openly. Not rudely. But in the way small communities do, quiet attention, curiosity simmering under politeness. Mark shoved the envelope under his arm and marched toward me. "What is this?" he hissed, keeping his voice low. I tilted my head. "What does it say, you?" he sputtered, then stopped himself. Marlene had done it perfectly. Not a scene. Just a truth delivered to the place Mark valued most. Mark pulled me closer, smile frozen for onlookers. "You are trying to ruin me," he whispered through clenched teeth. I smiled back. "No," I whispered. "I'm letting people see who you are." That week, the social consequences began. Mark's phone rang less. Invitations paused. People who used to laugh at his jokes suddenly looked away. The church board asked him to step back pending personal matters. The Rotary group postponed his leadership role. His beloved firm, requested a formal meeting about financial conduct because of the retirement account concerns. Mark came home one evening, face gray. "They're treating me like a criminal," he said. I kept folding laundry. "Because you acted like one." Serena tried to intervene then, switching tactics from superiority to sympathy. She cornered me in the kitchen one afternoon. "Lorraine," she said softly, eyes glossy, "I never wanted this to hurt you." I looked at her. "Then why did you take our money?" Her cheeks flushed. "Mark told me you were separated." I laughed once. "Separated?" I held up my left hand. I was still washing his socks. Serena swallowed. "He said you were cold, that you didn't care." I leaned closer, voice calm. "Serena, if you believed that, you wouldn't have needed $160,000 to stay." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You don't know me," she whispered. "Oh," I said, "I know enough." She left the kitchen quickly, shoulders tight. That night, Mark tried to negotiate. He sat across from me at the dining table like we were having a business meeting. "Lorraine," he said, voice controlled, "we can settle this privately." "We can." "No," I said. He blinked. "No? You wanted private?" I said calmly. "You wanted to control the narrative. You wanted me quiet." I folded a paper, neat and precise. "I'm done being quiet." Mark's jaw clenched. "You're going to destroy our family." I looked at him. "You already did. I'm just picking up what's left." Then came the smaller twist that cut deeper than Serena. Brooke came to my room late one night, knocking softly, like she was a child again. "Mom," she whispered when I opened the door, eyes swollen. "I'm sorry." I didn't step aside. I stood in the doorway. "Why?" I asked. Brooke's lips trembled. "Dad, he said if we didn't do it this way, you'd drain everything. He said you'd make it impossible for us to inherit anything. He said you'd punish us." I stared at her. "And you believed him?" I said. She nodded, tears falling. "He's always acted like you were too emotional. I thought I was protecting myself." "Protecting yourself from your mother." I exhaled slowly. "Brooke," I said, "you didn't just hurt you. You helped him do it." She sobbed. "I didn't realize." "Yes," I said softly. "You did. You just told yourself a story where it sounded reasonable." Brooke covered her mouth. "What are you going to do?" I looked at my daughter, the one I'd rocked to sleep, the one whose hair I'd braided, the one I'd defended 1,000 times. And I said the hardest truth I'd ever said. "I'm going to let you live with it," I replied. In mid-January, Daniel called me with the settlement proposal. Mark wanted to keep the retirement accounts he'd touched. He wanted to buy me out of the house at a reduced valuation. He wanted to limit disclosure. Daniel laughed quietly when he read it. "He's offering you crumbs," he said. I stared out the window at the bare trees. "Then we don't accept," I said. We didn't. We pushed forward. Daniel subpoenaed records. The bank confirmed suspicious transfers. Mark's firm, his identity began distancing itself. Mark grew frantic. He started showing up in my spaces, trying to force emotional reactions. "You're enjoying this," he accused one morning. I looked up from my tea. "No," I said. "I'm surviving it." He slammed his hand on the counter. "After everything I've done for you." I stared at him. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated slowly. "Mark, I built your life while you built your ego." His eyes flashed. "You were nothing without me." And there it was, the sentence that explained 32 years in one cruel line. I smiled then. A small, calm smile. "Mark," I said, "you're about to find out how wrong you are." In February, the court granted a temporary order restoring protections: no sale, no transfers, no further depletion of accounts. Mark was ordered to provide full disclosures. The judge noted concerns about unilateral actions. Mark hated the word unilateral. It sounded like blame. Serena moved out quietly a week later. No dramatic goodbye. Just a suitcase rolling down the hall, her perfume fading like a lie. Mark tried to pretend he didn't care, but his eyes were hollow. Ethan stayed in touch, calling me every few days. "I'm on your side," he said one night. I closed my eyes. "Thank you." Brooke, meanwhile, was frozen between shame and pride. She didn't call. She posted photos online of family healing, as if hashtags could undo betrayal. Then came the day that felt like the real end. It was March, cold rain tapping the windows. Daniel called me into his office. Mark sat at the conference table across from me. He looked older, smaller. The charm had been sanded down by consequences. His attorney spoke first, pushing papers forward. "Mr. Kaplan is prepared to offer an equitable settlement," he said, voice practiced. Equitable. A word men like Mark love when they're losing control. The terms were clear: I would receive half of all marital assets, including retirement. The house would be sold, and I would receive my share. Mark would repay the questionable transfers as part of the settlement. There would be documentation acknowledging improper unilateral transfers. There would be consequences for any future violation. It wasn't revenge in the screaming sense. It was justice in the paperwork sense. Mark looked at me once, eyes tight. "Are you satisfied?" he asked. I didn't answer emotionally. I answered truthfully. "I'm relieved," I said. Mark's face twisted like he wanted to spit poison, but he couldn't. Not here. Not under the clean fluorescent lights of accountability. We signed. Afterward, in the parking lot, Mark approached me, rain dampening his hair. "Lorraine," he said quietly, voice raw, "we didn't have to do it like this." I looked at him, letting the rain cool my cheeks. "Yes," I said. "We did." He swallowed. "I never thought you'd fight?" I offered gently. He nodded, shame flashing. "I didn't either," I admitted. "But you gave me no choice." Mark's eyes wet. "I loved you." I stared at him, steady. "No," I said softly. "You loved what I provided." Then I got in my car and drove away. By April, the house was listed, this time legally. I walked through each room before the realtor came, touching the door frames, the banister, the kitchen counter worn smooth from years of my hands. I didn't romanticize it. I didn't pretend it hadn't held good memories. It had. But it had also held my silence. I packed what mattered. Letters. The quilt my grandmother made. The ornaments I'd collected each year, some with the kids' tiny handprints, some with places we traveled, some with names of people we'd lost. I left behind the things that belonged to the role I was retiring. In June, I bought a smaller townhouse across town, bright, clean, mine. Not a consolation prize. A reset. Marlene came over with a bottle of sparkling cider and toasted me. To Lorraine Kaplan, she said, eyes shining. Who finally stopped making Christmas magic for people who didn't deserve it? I laughed, real this time. To me, I said. That summer, Ethan visited often. He helped me plant flowers out front, joking that I was going to become the neighborhood garden queen. Brooke stayed distant until September when she called, voice thin. Mom, she said, I think Tessa and I are having problems. I closed my eyes. I heard the irony sharp as frost. What kind of problems? I asked. Brooke hesitated. Trust problems. Trust problems? The kind she'd helped create. I breathed slowly. Brooke, I said, I hope you figure it out. Truly. But I'm not the person you used to feel better about what you did. There was silence. I understand, she whispered. I didn't know if she did. But I'd finally stopped explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. As December approached again, the air changed, the lights in town, the wreaths on doors, the familiar holiday songs. For the first time, I wondered what Christmas would feel like without the burden of performance. Marlene insisted I come to her house for a cookie exchange. Ethan begged me to let him bring over a small tree. It's not Christmas without your ornaments, he said. I smiled. We'll see. On December 23rd, Ethan arrived with a modest tree, not too tall, not too perfect. We set it up together, laughing when it leaned slightly, arguing about which side was the front. Then I opened the ornament box. My hands trembled not from fear but from memory. Ethan held up a little clay ornament Brooke had made in kindergarten. Remember this? He asked. I nodded, throat tight. We hung it anyway. We hung them all. The good and the painful, the past and the lesson. When the tree was done, the lights glowed softly in my new living room. It wasn't the old house. It wasn't the old life. It was mine. On Christmas Eve, Marlene and I went to church together. I sat in a different pew. Mark was there, of course. Smaller now, quieter, sitting alone. Our eyes met briefly. He looked away first. After service, Reverend Cole approached me. Lorraine, he said gently, it's good to see you. It's good to be seen, I replied. He nodded, understanding more than words could hold. Outside, snow began to fall light and clean, like the world offering a fresh page. Marlene linked her arm through mine. You okay? She asked. I looked up at the falling snow and smiled. Yes, I said. I am. On Christmas morning, Ethan came over early. We drank coffee. We opened gifts slowly, no rush, no performance. He handed me a small box. Open it, he urged. Inside was a simple ornament glass, clear, with one word etched into it. Enough. My breath caught. Ethan swallowed, eyes bright. Because you were enough, Mom. Always. And because you finally said it. I held the ornament in my palm, feeling the smooth glass, the weight of the word. Enough. I stood and walked to the tree. I hung it near the center where the lights made it glow. Then I stepped back and took in the room, my life, my quiet peace. For years I thought Christmas meant holding everyone together. But it turns out sometimes the greatest gift is letting go and watching the people who took you for granted realize there's no magic left without you. My name is Lorraine Kaplan. And last Christmas I learned the difference between being loved and being used. My name is Lorraine and this was the last straw. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.